Welcome to Back in Crime, a podcast presented by Texas Crime Travelers. I'm Stewart Fillmore, retired FBI agent.
And I'm Todd Hiles, retired Secret Service agent. In this podcast, we cover cases we worked and some we wish we had.
As lifelong street agents, we were where the rubber met the road.
While the big guys were doing press conferences, we were interviewing the criminals.
And because of that, we can take you inside these cases
and under the crime scene tape.
This is Back in Crime.
A date etched in America's history is November 22nd, 1963.
Wow. I'm drawing a blank. Todd, what happened on that day?
It's the day President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas.
Of course, I'm just kidding. Yes, that's a very historic day.
And I would say just about every person over a certain age remembers exactly where they were when they heard the news that day.
Well, you know, I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm old enough. I was alive when that happened, but I was only 6 weeks old. But it is etched in my brain from my grandmother telling me that I was asleep while she was watching the old soap opera As the World Turns when they broke in to say that, you know, to make the announcement that the president had been shot.
And 45 minutes after the fatal shots are fired in Dealey Plaza, there's another man murdered in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that has looked at the assassination, you know, is aware that in fact, really, Lee Harvey Oswald, the presumed assassin of President Kennedy, was actually arrested not for shooting President Kennedy, but for murdering Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit.
Right. He was not a political figure, not a president, but he was somebody murdered 45 minutes later.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Tippit's story is pretty much buried like a footnote in the whole JFK assassination.
Yeah, I agree. You know, like I said, anybody that has, you know, and since I've done my own research into the assassination, I'm well aware, you know, a lot about J.D. Tippit. But, you know, I think most people certainly, you know, they know that President Kennedy was assassinated, but they have no idea who J.D. Tippit was.
Right. And so his entire murder, his entire story is really just almost forgotten because of the chaos that day.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah.
But today we're going to tell his story.
Yeah, I think that's great. I love it.
Because Officer J.D. Tippit may have been the key to capturing President Kennedy's assassin, or at least the man they accuse of killing President Kennedy. Mm-hmm. Now, before we get into it, I want to tell you about a conversation I had with a guy at the grocery store the other day.
Okay.
He approaches me, and he says, man, he really enjoys listening to our podcast.
Okay.
I ask him what his favorite episode was, and he says the kidnapping of Frank Sinatra's son.
Yeah, I know. I love that one, too. That's a great one.
And he says the same thing. He you know, didn't know that crime had occurred. Mm-hmm. And if you remember, that kidnapping was actually planned to occur on November 22nd, 1963.
Exactly, yeah. And the kidnappers, you know, like, it even affected them.
Yeah.
You know, so they postponed the
kidnapping because of the assassination. Now, the second thing the guy tells me at the grocery store is that he enjoys when I ask you trivia questions.
Okay.
So today, I've added a few trivia questions throughout this episode to test your knowledge.
All right, bring it on. Bring it on.
Well, buckle up. Here we go. J.D. Tippit was born September 18th, 1924 in Red River County, Texas. His parents were Edgar Tippit and Lizzie May. Regarding his initials J.D., there's reporting that Edgar, his father, gave him the name J.D. as a first name and that they don't stand for anything.
You know, I've heard that before. Oh, that's a common thing. Like when people, they were just given initials for names, and then when they joined the Army made them put names to those initials.
I guess his father was in high school and he read a book, and the character's name was J.D., and the father admired this character, and that's why he named his son J.D. There is some reporting out there that J.D. stood for Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederate States. Mm-hmm. Now, what I find interesting is J.D.'s grandfather was U.G. Tippit.
Okay.
And there are old newspaper articles identifying him as U.G.
Right.
But Stewart, what do you think his obituary said regarding the name U.G.?
Ulysses Grant.
You're exactly right. So it's kind of Odd that the grandfather could
Yeah,
be
exactly.
named Ulysses Grant and the grandson named Jefferson Davis.
Yeah, that's interesting because the initials JD kind of flows off the tongue really well. Sounds cool. I think in a couple of John Wayne movies, his character was JD because like I said, it's almost poetic. It rolls off the tongue. UG does not, I don't
No,
think.
no.
So I wonder what the thought was behind naming somebody UG.
Right. So in 1944, JD enlists in the U.S. Army and he attends basic training in Camp Walters. Do you have any idea where Camp Walters is located?
Camp
Stuart?
Walters. I've heard of it, but I'm blank on where it is.
It was in Mineral Wells, Texas. I guess sort of near Fort Worth, Texas.
Yes, I think it's just to the northwest of Fort Worth a little bit. Yeah.
And so during World War II, over 200,000 trainees cycled through Camp Walters.
Okay.
And also, there's a famous enlisted soldier who went through basic training at Camp Walters. Can you take a guess who that was?
I'm gonna just do a wild guess and say Audie Murphy.
Stuart, you're correct. Audie Murphy was from Hunt County, Texas.
Yes.
Just a little bit more to our northwest here.
Yes. And for those that don't know, Audie Murphy was the most decorated combat soldier of World War II.
After the attack of Pearl Harbor in December 1941, he attempted to enlist in the U.S. military, but the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps all turned him down for being underage.
Yeah.
And then his sister provided an affidavit that falsified his date of birth.
Yeah.
And he was accepted in the Army in 1942.
There's a movie. It was made in 1955 that Audie Murphy after the war actually became a movie star, and he played himself in the biography of his life. And there's a scene where he was a young looking guy, just had kind of a baby face. And there's a scene in the movie where he goes to the right after Pearl Harbor, he's trying to enlist, and he goes to the Marine recruiter, and the recruiter tells him, "Son, we make men out of boys, but we got to have something to start with."
And you're right. He did become an actor. He appeared in over 40 movies. And then on May 28th, 1971, he's actually killed in a private plane crash in Virginia.
Yeah. Really sad.
And on June 7th, 1971, he was buried with military honors at Arlington National Cemetery.
It's true. Yeah, and I've actually seen his gravesite when I was going through the FBI Academy. On weekends in that area in Virginia. I love battlefields and history and all that kind of stuff. And so every weekend I would go someplace historic. And so I went a couple times actually to Arlington National Cemetery. And there's the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which is a cool thing to watch too, like when they change the guards and all that stuff. That's really cool to watch. But Audie Murphy's gravestone, as I recall, is just real close to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, real close. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, in fact, his grave site is the second most visited at Arlington Cemetery.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, there's so many people.
Done a trivia question on that one. I would have flunked it.
Oh no, and again, so many people go there that they actually had to create its own walkway. Was constructed just so that to accommodate the large number of people who visited his headstone to pay their respects.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go back to J.D. Tippit. So after basic training, J.D. volunteered for the paratroopers, and he completed airborne training at Fort Benning, Georgia. In late 1944, J.D. was shipped to England and assigned to the 17th Airborne Division as an infantryman. March 24th, 1945, he parachutes with the 17th Division across the Rhine River inside Germany, making his only one in-combat jump.
Okay.
And there he earned a medal.
Yeah.
What medal do you think he earned?
I don't know. I'll guess and say the Silver Star.
No, he earned the Bronze Star.
Bronze Star. Okay. All right. That's impressive.
When the war ends in September 1945, he has this honorable discharge and he returns to Red River County in Texas. Later that year, maybe the next year, he ends up marrying Marie Frances Gasway in Clarksville, Texas. He kind of works on the family farm up there in Red River County, but eventually he quits farming, and in 1952 he is hired by the Dallas Police Department, and he is assigned badge number 848.
Okay.
Little trivia here. 37 years after J.D. Tippit was hired, who was also hired by the Dallas Police Department?
I'm gonna go way out on a limb and say I can't do the math that fast in my head, but I'm gonna guess that maybe a young police recruit named Todd Hiles started at the Dallas Police Department.
You're correct. In fact, I was assigned a badge number 5,264 after his.
Are those consecutive, you think?
It means that between JD and I, the police department hired over 5,200 police officers.
Right.
They don't recycle numbers.
Okay.
And once you get that badge number, it's yours forever.
Forever.
And they don't recycle.
Okay. One thing they used to do in the FBI is, and I didn't do this. I don't know why I didn't do it, but my grandfather had been an FBI agent, but they had a tradition where they would give you the badge of like your father or grandfather that they had retired under, and you could get their badge if you made a request for it. I just never did it, but it's a pretty cool tradition.
Yeah, I think on the Dallas Police Department with having the badge numbers, that way if you got to a scene with other people there, you knew who was senior then by badge number.
Okay, that makes sense. But at some point, as we going forward in the future, you're going to get a really difficult number to to deal.
They're going to get a huge number.
I'm badge number 1,742,386.
Yeah, they're going to have a big, huge badge with a bunch of numbers on there. So JD was 39 years old. He's just a regular beat cop. Of course, he's a World War II veteran. He's a husband and a father of 3. And really, at this time, he's known just to be this steady, reliable patrol officer. Mm-hmm. He's not flashy. He's not famous. He's just dependable.
And not, in the FBI, we call them blue flamers or ladder climbers, guys that are just in there to just, progress administratively up the administrative ladder. He was a guy, he liked patrol, stayed in patrol, and just did his job.
I would guess he was one of those cops that when you put a call out for a police officer, this is the guy you want to show up. Mm-hmm. He's just super dependable. Everybody likes him.
Yeah.
So on November 22nd, 1963, he leaves his house around 6:15 a.m. in the morning. And on the way to the police station, he makes a stop at his sister's house to drop off a book, and he gives some money to a niece because he wants her to go to school and buy him a ticket for that night for the South Oak Cliff High School football game.
Yeah.
And
because it was a Friday.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so then JD arrives at the police station around 7:30 a.m. and immediately he begins patrolling his beat, which was south of Oak Cliff,
right,
approximately 5 miles from downtown. At around 10:30 a.m., he meets for coffee at the Rebel Drive-In with another police officer mm-hmm. whose beat is next to JD's. Both officers, they're sitting there drinking their coffee, and they both mention that they wished that they were given an assignment downtown with the President's Parade.
Right.
They wanted to be detailed downtown and not out there, shagging 911 calls.
Right.
JD, he leaves the drive-in, but he eventually returns to his residence for his lunch break.
Right. Yeah.
One of his sons had gone to school that day, but returned home because he was sick. So that son was able to have lunch with JD that day. During lunch, JD mentioned to his wife that, again, he wished that he had an assignment downtown because he wanted to see President Kennedy in person. Mm-hmm. He admired JFK, and in fact, he and his wife had voted for JFK.
Yeah.
JD has a quick lunch that day. He doesn't take his full lunch hour, and he returns to the streets because a lot of officers are downtown, and there's not that many on patrol.
Right. So, Todd, just real quick before we leave this, uh, in my JFK research, one of the things that I remember reading about J.D. Tippit's story was, he came home, had lunch. The son was there, who was maybe 14 years old or so.
I would think of maybe a little bit younger, but yeah.
But a young man.
Yeah.
And that when JD was leaving, he actually told his son, he said, I love you. And the son will later kind of talk about that was unusual, and why he did it that day, he didn't really know.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hundreds of people are, of course, they're downtown. They're watching the president's parade. And JD's doing what he's always done. He's patrolling. He's listening to the police radio that's inside his patrol car.
Yeah.
Just after 12:30 p.m., President Kennedy is shot while riding in the parade near the Texas School Book Depository.
Right. In Dealey Plaza.
Right. And the police dispatcher orders available units to respond to the shooting scene. Within a few minutes, an eyewitness gave a description of the shooter. Around 12:40 p.m., TV viewers on CBS received the first national television report of the shooting from news anchorman Walter Cronkite.
Mm-hmm.
At around 12:45 p.m., a suspect description goes out over the police radio. The description is vague, and all available Dallas police officers are told to be on the lookout for this suspicious person.
Yeah, it was. I think the description was roughly, a white male, maybe 5'8", 160 pounds. A pretty generic description that could fit a whole lot of guys.
And now, looking at testimony of the people that were there and reviewing the police radio logs, we know that JFK was shot at 12:30 p.m. We know that Oswald left the school book depository shortly afterward.
Yes.
And he returned to his rooming house in Oak Cliff by 1 p.m.
That's right.
At
1026 North Beckley.
And at this rooming house, he was seen grabbing a jacket, and he left the room in a hurry.
Yes.
Which was a weird for me to get there to understand, because wasn't there people at the rooming house that are watching TV?
It was I don't really know what the correct term is. The house maiden, the
landlord,
landlady. I'm not sure what her exact title was, but her name was Earlene Roberts, and she was just pretty much like the story my grandmother said, that Earlene Roberts had been there watching TV, and they broke in with the story about the president had been shot, and then shortly thereafter, Earlene Roberts is watching this, mesmerized, like I'm sure the entire country was, and Oswald comes in, and apparently he was always a pretty quiet guy. He didn't mix and mingle with the other boarders there, and she knew him as O.H. Lee. He had used an alias there, but he barges in, and she's watching TV and says, "Oh my God, did you see? Have you heard that the president's been shot?" He didn't answer her. He just blew right past her. He's in his room for maybe a couple of minutes. He comes back out with what she described as an Eisenhower jacket, which is like a light windbreaker, and blows past her again. Never said a word to her. And again,
I find that weird that he doesn't stop to see what's the breaking news on television.
Yes.
So, and about this time, the police locate the sniper's nest along with a rifle on the 6th floor of the school book depository. And now the police dispatcher requests JD to move north to more of a central part of Oak Cliff.
Right.
And that's going to be about 2 miles from downtown.
Yes. For those that don't know, like downtown Dallas, there's a neighborhood, an area called Oak Cliff. It's just south of downtown. Across there's a bridge that they call it, the Oak Cliff Aqueduct.
I was going to say
Houston
viaduct
Street,
or something.
Houston Street Viaduct.
Yeah.
That goes right over the Trinity River takes you right into Oak Cliff.
And so again, JD, the dispatcher has him move up closer to downtown. they know at 12:55 p.m., the dispatcher asked JD, is he in Oak Cliff? And JD's last radio transmission is 10:04.
Yeah.
At around
What time was that last transmission, Todd? Do you
that was at 12:55 p.m.
Got it. Okay.
So then around 1:11 p.m., JD sees a man walking alone along 10th Street near Patton Avenue.
Yeah.
This man is white. He's slim, about 5'10". I guess he sort of, matches that vague description that was just released of the JFK shooting suspect.
Sure. Yeah. Again, it's vague, and so this guy does at least match those vague characteristics that I've been told to look for. So, as a patrol officer, guess what? I'm going to stop and find out who this guy is.
Right. And to me, I think there's more to it because, JD has been a police officer for 11 years. So I think he's developed that gut feeling that there's got to be something more to this man that gets JD's attention.
I can't really describe what it is, how you develop it, or whatever. But you spend any time in law enforcement, and you do develop, an extra sense, a sixth sense, I guess. Although it's not anything psychic, but it is a gut feeling is a good way to say it, like you said, and that just something's not right, and I can't really put into words, obviously,
right,
what that is, but it's there, and so yes, no doubt, this probably piqued his interest.
It triggered that enough that JD again, he's in the police car, but he pulls up next to this suspicious person or this man, and the man approaches the passenger side of the patrol car.
Yep.
And again, that was normal interaction in those days. But today, police officers, they're not trained that way. Police officers are trained to get out of the police car before engaging a suspect. Mm-hmm. And so at this situation out there, what happens now, it's going to happen quick and it's going to be deadly.
Yeah.
JD exchanges some words with the man through the passenger side of the patrol car. To witnesses, it looked like there was some type of a conversation. Mm-hmm. What was said, we don't know, but JD does get out of the driver's side of the patrol car, and he walks around the front of the squad car, and he starts moving towards the man.
Yep. And
without warning, the man pulls a revolver from his waistband and shoots 4 times.
Yes.
JD is shot 4 times. He shot 3 in the chest, and the 4th shot is to his head. And again, this happens in broad daylight on this neighborhood street, and there are several witnesses that watch the shooting.
Yeah, exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't that the final shot to the head was after he was already on the ground?
Yeah, that's what some witnesses
will say. It was like a coup de grace.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are other witnesses that they hear the gunshots, they look towards, where the sound came from, where the gunshots come from, and they see a man flee on foot.
Yes.
And as this man, or let's call him now the shooter, as he flees, witnesses see him, drop or dump the shell casings from the revolver,
yep,
and he begins reloading the revolver. There's also a witness that observed him. He removes the jacket that he's wearing,
yep,
and he tosses it into a parking lot.
Right.
And then it's going to be about 1:15 p.m. when a witness uses the police radio inside JD's patrol car and tells the police dispatcher that an officer has been shot.
Yes.
So now, about a 14-minute walk from where JD is shot, it's about 1:35 p.m. now, and there's a manager of the Hardy Shoe Store, which is located at 213 West Jefferson.
Yeah.
And
Jefferson being a kind of a main thoroughfare,
main
east-west running street that, Todd, what would you say, maybe a mile and a quarter from Oswald's rooming house?
Yeah.
On Beckley?
Yeah.
Beckley runs north and south up toward Jefferson, and maybe a mile. Let's just call it roughly a mile.
And so this shoe store manager, he sees this suspicious person, and every time the person turns his face away from the street and he sort of ducks into the entranceway of the shoe store as police cars are approaching the area with their sirens blasting. And again, he's a manager of the shoe store. He thinks this is suspicious, right? And so when the person actually departs the shoe store, the manager follows him and he watches him enter the Texas Theater, which is located at 231 West Jefferson.
Yeah, just down the block, just west of the shoe store.
And he sees this man walk in there without paying a ticket because the ticket attendant is distracted at the time. So the shoe store manager informs the ticket attendant, hey, you better call the police because this guy just walked in there without paying for a ticket.
Yep.
And so she actually calls the police, and about 1:50 p.m., police officers show up and they enter the movie theater and they confront the suspicious person. And again, allegedly, the suspicious person says, this is it. It's all over now.
Yes. Yep.
Which is sort of chilling if that's really what he said.
Yeah, and actually points that revolver, which either failed to fire or the officer actually grabbed the cylinder, revolver cylinder, which didn't allow a revolver won't operate if you can hold that cylinder firm enough.
Yeah, it prevented it from firing. Now,
exactly.
There's a lot of, there's some dispute about did this guy really even say anything? But there is no dispute that he did pull a revolver from his waistband. And then once he's in police custody, he's driven downtown to police headquarters, and this suspicious person is identified as Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yep. Yeah, there's actually some photos of them bringing him out of the theater. He's got a pretty good little shiner on his eye, little bump on his eye.
Right.
And in those days, it was if you resisted, it was pretty common that you'd get at least what you gave, and maybe a little extra.
Yeah, and especially if you pulled this gun and tried to fire.
Absolutely. Yep.
So on the news, it's reported that a Dallas police officer had been shot and killed, but it's initially reported that a detective was killed. But later, the news report, and they actually name Officer J.D. Tippit.
Yeah.
Now, news outlets in Dallas were not naming the officer that was killed, but in other areas of Texas, those news stations released JD's name.
Interesting. I've never heard that before. I wonder how that evolved or what caused that situation.
Because some of his relatives that did not live in the Dallas area, they heard it on the news and they immediately called JD's wife.
Okay.
And she did not know. So she ends up calling the police station and she was told that JD was killed.
Okay. Wow.
Once downtown in a police station, Oswald is placed into an interview room. His hands are tested, which indicate that he had recently fired a firearm.
Well, let me clarify that because there's going to be a few interesting little things we're going to talk about with this, but one of the interesting things to me is Oswald. Yes, his hands tested positive, but his cheek did not. So what that tells me is he had fired a handgun of some kind, a revolver, possibly a pistol, because those shell casings that were found at the scene, there's a few issues with those as well. But yes, for the moment, let's just stick with what we know. The hands tested positive, but the cheek did not. So that, to me, is indicative he fired a handgun, but not a rifle. So stay tuned. Keep going.
So back at the JFK shooting scene down there in Dealey Plaza, the police determined that there's one employee missing from the school book depository, and that's Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee Harvey Oswald, exactly.
So now everybody is searching for him. And there's this, I've seen this interview of a police officer, and he says that he goes into the room and he says FBI's in there, the chief of police are in there, and they're saying, hey, we have to find Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
We have to find him. He's the guy that's missing from down there. And this guy says, oh, you're not going to believe it, but Lee Harvey Oswald's in custody in the room next to us.
Yes.
Because we just brought him in for shooting JD.
Yeah. He also, again, I don't know the Tippit angles or inconsistencies as well as I know the forensics of JFK of that shooting, but I know that he had a wallet on him that had the same alias that he had used to buy the rifle. And it was Alec Heidel was one of the aliases. Like I said, he was also at the rooming house under the name O.H. Lee. So he was using aliases all over town.
Right.
So I can imagine that there was some confusion initially at first that, hey, even who is this guy?
Right.
Yeah.
And well, some witnesses that saw JD's shooting, they come down to police headquarters and they identify Oswald as the shooter. So around 7 p.m. that night, Oswald is charged, for the murder of J.D. Tippit. Later that evening, Attorney General Bobby Kennedy, he telephones J.D.'s wife and offers condolences on behalf of Mrs. Kennedy.
Okay. Now there's some trivia I did not know. That's Todd, you should have got me on that one. Which that's actually I find that impressive because Robert Kennedy had a lot of things on his plate that night, and he had just lost his brother, and I'm sure that was foremost in his mind, but it's nice to hear that he took the time to call JD's widow.
Right. And again, there's a lot of dispute in the JFK case, but in this officer J.D. Tippit's murder, what's not disputed is this. When arrested, Oswald had a loaded .38 caliber revolver.
It's true.
And that's the same type that was used to kill J.D.
Yeah.
A ballistics match, it was a test done on ballistics, and the bullets in J.D.'s body were fired from Oswald's gun.
Yeah.
Even the shell casings left on the ground, the one that the witnesses saw, the suspicious person dumped, they matched the weapon.
Well, but initially there was, and this is probably just maybe confusion at the scene. I think there was some indication that initially it went out over the radio that it was 32 caliber automatic.
Okay.
Shell casings that were found. So again, was that just confusion at the moment? More than likely. So I think that also is grounds for a lot of people to think, oh my God, it wasn't Oswald, because Oswald had a revolver, and the police are looking for an automatic or semi-automatic. So I tend to believe that's probably just some confusion initially about calling out what they found on the ground.
Yeah, you could be right there. So going back to some more evidence, we talked about that jacket that the witnesses saw the shooter discard. That jacket is later linked to Oswald through laundry tags and witness statements that said it was his jacket. A fiber located inside the jacket matched the shirt that Oswald was wearing when he was arrested. And again, Oswald's not arrested at the Texas School Book Depository. He's not found hiding from JFK's shooting near there.
Exactly.
Instead, Oswald was caught because he was acting suspicious.
Well, I'll just tell you now, for folks that are interested in this whole case, we've done a 3-part series on the JFK assassination, delving deeply into the forensics of the shooting and the wounding of the president. We don't really go at all into J.D. Tippit, but what my conclusion in all of this is, or at least I guess my working theory of it, is I believe based on the forensic evidence available to us for the president, I think there were at least two shooters, one in front of the president and one behind the president. Now, Oswald's position would have been behind the president, okay? A lot of people think that Oswald was just simply a patsy, that he was set up and was completely innocent, okay? I have a hard time dismissing that Oswald had some suspicious, if not outright, illegal involvement in this because of the way I described earlier, his encounter with Earlene Roberts.
Right.
He's in and out. Also, too, to backtrack just a second, when he left the school book depository, he got on a bus. The bus got stuck in traffic. He gets off the bus. He gets in a cab. Ultimately, takes a cab to that rooming house, which is as the crow flies, is not far at all from Dealey Plaza. And he has the cab driver drive him, I think, a couple of blocks past the rooming house, and he
okay.
gets out and walks back toward it. That's suspicious. Okay, we know that he leaves out just almost as fast as he came in the door. Earlene Roberts, he blows past her, and that's suspicious. That's weird.
Right.
There's just no other
Right.
way to describe it. Okay, and then what you described is absolutely the official version of the shooting of J.D. Tippit and all that. There are a few of those witnesses that there's some discrepancies in some of the witness statements. But what's not in doubt is it was Lee Harvey Oswald that was taken in custody at the school book deposit. I mean, at the Texas Theater, which is absolutely between the rooming house and where J.D. Tippit was found.
Right.
So so Oswald's going to a movie when all this happened. He's the only employee to leave. Yeah, I do not dismiss the possibility that Oswald was knee deep in this thing. Okay,
Right.
I just don't believe any longer that he was the sole assassin.
Right. And again, you say what is suspicious, what is weird. Why does he leave where he works?
That's funky
and get on a bus and get on a cab and do all that, and then go to the movies.
Yeah.
Now, over the years, there was always this speculation that J.D. and Oswald knew each other.
Yes.
And now the only reporting that I could find was from a waitress at an Oak Cliff restaurant, and she claimed that just days prior to November 22nd, she said Oswald was in the restaurant causing a disturbance, and J.D. Tippit was also dining in that restaurant.
Yes.
And the waitress claimed that J.D. sort of gave this look. He sort of glared over at Oswald, and that quelled the disturbance.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I could find that where these two might have ever crossed paths.
I think there are a few, witness statements over the years that discuss, I saw J.D. and Lee Harvey hanging out here and there at the gun range, whatever. Stuff that really kind of, as far as I'm concerned, kind of goes off the deep end.
Right.
As far as, conspiracy stuff.
Right. J.D.'s Tippit's funeral takes place on November 25th, 1963, the same day as President Kennedy's.
The president's, yes.
And, while millions of people are watching the president's casket roll down Pennsylvania Avenue, Tippit's burial is just in a quiet cemetery in Dallas, Texas, that, of course, draws far less attention.
Mm-hmm.
He's laid to rest there, and there's over 1,500 mourners attend his funeral.
Yeah.
And later, his wife, Marie, is left to raise his 3 children on her own.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Kennedy sent a letter to the Tippit family, and the Tippit family responded back with their own letter to Mrs. Kennedy. In the Tippit letter, the Tippit family requested a photo of the Kennedy family. The Tippit family received letters from people all over the country, and donations came in. There's reporting that by 1964, over $600,000 was raised.
Boy, that's a chunk of money back then.
I think it'd be probably equivalent to several $1 million today.
Yeah.
And again, J.D. Tippit was this man who ran towards trouble. And even on this day when the entire nation was stunned, in the end, I would think that his death really helped close one of the darkest days in American history.
Yeah, yeah.
I said earlier that his death was a footnote for that day, but it's more than a footnote. He was the unsung hero of the day.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously he had heard about that the president had been shot. There's a suspect. This is who we need to look for, and that's what he did. There's a lot of things though that my JFK research has, as I mentioned, I was focused on the gunshots, the wounds to the president, and where those would lead. And I believe, like I said, I think at least the throat wound to the president, if it was an entry wound as described at Parkland, leads to a front shooter. But in the JFK research, there's a lot of stuff that slings a little mud toward J.D. Tippit that maybe that that he was actually involved. There are a couple of I hesitate to use the word suspicious because I haven't seen anything that convinces me that J.D. Tippit was anything other than just like you just said, was doing the right thing, was just a patrol officer. But there are a couple of things that maybe are unexplained, and that is he was seen at just very shortly after the assassination, he was seen at a gas station that's just over the bridge from downtown, and that there's a bus stop there as well. And he was sitting there at this gas station. The bus from downtown comes by, stops, and goes on, and then he leaves very quickly because they knew him at the gas station.
Right.
And then he goes back up to Jefferson Street, and he goes into a record store to make a phone call. This is the days before cell phones.
Right.
So you look for pay phones or you look for phones in businesses, and he goes into the record store. They knew him in the record store, and he's apparently very agitated. Makes a phone call. We don't know who it was to. He's in and out of there real quick out of that record store. The record store, I think, was across the street from the Texas Theater.
Okay.
And then shortly after that is when he's involved in the shooting where he's killed. I tell you another couple of anomalies here that stand out is if you start looking at the times when Earlene Roberts places Oswald coming into that rooming house. She says it was right about 1 o'clock, okay? And again, he's in and out within a couple minutes. And so when he's out, supposedly, I think the time of the shooting of J.D. Tippit was around 1:10, 1:12. So if Earlene Roberts is correct, and the witnesses at the scene at 10th and Patton are correct, that does not give Oswald enough time to walk from 1026 North Beckley to 10th and Patton. So it's a weird little timing thing there too. I've said this many, many times, not just about the JFK assassination, is no matter how well you work a case, there many times are unexplained anomalies that do not make sense. They do not fit with the evidence you've gathered. And does it sink the whole case? No, it doesn't. It literally is just chalked up to we're dealing with human beings who are imperfect people, and maybe times don't get necessarily right or wrong. So, like I said, there are a few things that are certainly worthy of looking into J.D. Tippit in relation to the assassination. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but there are a couple of books that go way in depth, way more than I'm talking about now. That for someone that's interested in it. But I can just tell you from my look into the JFK assassination, there's nothing that's convinced me that JD was part of it, that there was some grand conspiracy between he and Oswald, or anything like that. I will tell you one thing, though, that I think is worthy of looking into, and it's something a friend of mine that I have collaborate with a little bit in some JFK research is when you talked about when JD pulls up to the suspicious man at 10th and Patton, that the man leans over and talks to him through the passenger window. The indication is that the man kind of placed his hands there, or maybe leaned his elbows there, maybe put his hands inside the car. There's some confusing data regarding whether the police were able to get latent fingerprints from that all along that passenger side fender, which is where the man was. And boy, if you could get a Lee Harvey Oswald fingerprint, that'll seal the deal without a doubt. Or on the other hand, if that fingerprint doesn't match Oswald, then that raises a whole lot of questions. But either way, Nothing convinces me that Tippit was doing anything wrong that day.
Right. And I think I've seen other reportings, but they kind of described it as the passenger window was up, but it was that little triangle
that little
vent window.
what do you call those
The
little
vent
windows that folks, our younger listeners, have no idea what we're talking about.
Right.
But a lot of cars back in the day, believe it or not, didn't have air conditioning, and so this was a design feature that allowed you to go down the road with your where your main window was still up, but you could keep that window that little vent window open to get you some air in the car.
Right. And again, I would think that
because another thing too that makes sense that it would have been the vent window is, JD would have had to reach way over to the passenger side to unroll that window. This is also the days before
electric windows.
If there were electric windows on cars, it would have been premium luxury Cadillac cars, that would have had automatic windows.
And the city of Dallas wouldn't have paid for that for the police car.
I can promise you that a Dallas patrol car in 1963 would not have had power windows.
No.
So he would have had to reach over to roll that window down. And as I remember, because I've ridden in many cars that had roll down windows, that's not that easy. It's hard to do. So if the vent window's already open, he could hear the guy through that vent window, and so that is totally plausible as well.
Right.
But the point is that man would have leaned on the car a little bit because he would have had to bend over to maybe speak through that vent window. So he would have had to bend over somehow. So he would have touched that car, and that's just not been part of my research into the latent prints that were taken from there. I know that some were, and that my friend that I frequently talk with about this kind of stuff, I know he's looking deeply into this. So if there's some development about this, you guys will be the first to know about it.
Sounds good. But I think we can both sort of agree then. But at the end of the day, J.D. Tippit, he's not supposed to be some answer in a trivia game, right? He's just a regular man who gave his life doing his job.
That's right, yeah.
And in doing so, he may have stopped a presidential assassin from slipping away.
That's right, yeah.
Now, later, I talked about these letters that the Tippit family wrote, the Kennedy family, and so later, Mrs. Kennedy does send that photo of the Kennedy family to the Tippit family, as they had requested. In the caption, Mrs. Kennedy spoke of the bond that she shared with Mrs. Tippit, that each of them had to remind their children that their fathers had been brave.
Yeah. It's sad.
Yeah. In November of 2001, a Texas state historical marker was dedicated in Red River County near the farm where J.D. grew up.
Okay.
In November of 2012, another Texas state historical marker was dedicated near the location where J.D. was murdered.
Todd, your office covered a little larger territory than ours did. So I never really worked in Red River County. Did you ever make it up there at all?
I've seen pictures of it.
Okay.
Along the road up there, but I have never traveled up there to see it.
It's pretty rural. It's not on the beaten path.
Yeah, it's a lot of farmland up there.
Yeah.
Now, before we close out this episode, here's a little more trivia for you.
Great.
Ready?
Bring it.
Okay. So who, after seeing JFK at Love Field Airport, this person is now driving down a road and they hear the assassination.
Okay.
And they drive to...
They hear it on the radio.
They hear it on the radio.
Okay.
And this person drives to Parkland Hospital and he sees the limousine. He sees Mrs. Kennedy. He sees, the bloodstains on her dress. Do you know who that person was?
Wow. I feel like I should know this. Give me a hint. Is this someone that later becomes a celebrity?
His real name is Michael Lee Aday.
Michael Lee Aday.
Better known today as Meatloaf, the singer.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Meatloaf.
I would have thought Meatloaf would have been maybe too young to drive at that time. But
I think
must
he's
be
around
older than I'm
16
thinking.
at that. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Meatloaf's dad is a Dallas police officer.
Okay. I know he's from Dallas, but I don't know that much trivia about Meatloaf. Meatloaf, for our younger listeners, is a kind of a classic rock singer, famous, that I think he's now passed, but he had an incredible singing voice.
Here's some more trivia. In the 1992 movie titled Ruby, Officer J.D. Tippit is played by what actor?
Wow, I've never seen Ruby, and I've seen a lot of JFK-related movies and everything. I just have never seen this one, so I just have to say I don't know.
Write that down.
I know you're killing me on the trivia today.
He got one wrong. Finally got one wrong. I'm going to give you a hint, though.
Okay.
So in 1993, a year later, he's going to play an FBI agent in a hit TV show, and he is named Fox Mulder in that TV show.
Oh, David Duchovny.
Correct.
Okay, tell me again who he played. He played Jack Ruby?
No, he played J.D. Tippit in the movie Ruby.
J.D. Tippit. Okay.
He played J.D. Tippit
Got it.
in that movie. While I was on the Dallas Police Department, many movies, of course, were filmed in Dallas.
Yeah.
And one of the officers that I worked with had a father that owned an old car that was used for movies.
Okay.
He would drive it out there, and they would just park it, I guess just kind of his little side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
He would drive that car out there and use it in the movies.
Okay.
And it was used in the filming of the scene near where J.D. Tippit was killed.
Okay.
Later, the director is reviewing actual crime scene photos from J.D.'s murder, and he noticed that J.D. had laundered uniforms hanging in the backseat of his patrol car.
Oh, I've never seen that detail. Okay.
So they turned around and they hired my friend's dad again to come back with his car just to reshoot that entire scene.
Yeah.
Because the director wanted to get it so factual.
Yeah.
So,
well, so you're talking the movie JFK, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's Oliver Stone.
Right.
And I'll just tell you, this is completely unrelated, but since we're just telling little movie stories, let me tell you this real quick. So when I was, I'd just been in the FBI maybe a year, and I was a support employee at the time. I was not an agent, and we had, my work was mainly confined to the office, and we had, a 45-minute lunch break, and I'd gone to lunch, and I knew that they were filming the movie Born on the 4th of July in and around Dallas, the Tom Cruise movie. And that particular day, I forget where I had lunch, just a quick little bite somewhere, and not far from where they were filming. So I thought, I've got a few minutes. I'm going to walk over and see what's going on. And so for the rest of my lunch break, I don't remember how much time. I spent maybe 20 minutes there, not that long. They were setting up this scene to film that was, to be in the movie Born on the 4th of July. And I could not wait. When that movie came out, I wanted to see this little part that I saw them setting up for. I don't think they filmed anything while I was watching, but I really wanted to see with this scene that I had been watching them set up. And then I was there for, like I said, maybe 20 minutes, and it seems like it had been going on before I got there. Clearly it had. I don't know how long it went on after I was there. But in the movie, this one little scene, this one little part that I had seen them setting up was literally a flash in the movie. I mean, like a second maybe. and I thought that was a lot of work for that one little snippet of scene.
Crazy. Well, as always, thank you so much for listening. And as a listener, hit that subscribe or follow button.
Absolutely. We love the questions and comments. We love doing this, and if you guys have some suggestions or some ideas for things maybe we should look into, let us know. We'd love to hear it.
And if you've enjoyed hearing this case, share it with your friends, and join us next time on Back in Crime, where we'll explore another case.
This has been the Back in Crime podcast presented by Texas Crime Travelers Todd Hiles and Stewart Fillmore. We are the executive producers. Grace Hiles is the producer and director. Theme music composed by Eddie Bandas. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and our YouTube channel at Texas Crime Traveler.